Most games make war look exciting, building empires look easy, and politics look like, well, nothing. But why? Why do political games almost always fall short of reality? And why do games where politics should play a big role choose not to include it or only have a very shallow depiction of it? Today, I wanted to dive into why political games about elections, governments, diplomacy, and reform are some of the hardest games to design and get right. And why even games that should include these features choose not to. I think ultimately one of the biggest reasons is because of how politics actually functions in real life. And I'm not going to talk about the somewhat obvious way for now about how politics is just divisive by nature. Most people in a country can point to an issue, but where the differences actually start to occur is how to actually handle the problem. That's why political games are so hard to design, because politics is not binary. There is not usually an obviously good option like some people like to believe. I remember when Mr. Beast tweeted about him running for president. I always thought that this was really funny that he said this, not to just sort of rag on the dude, but he said, "If I were president, I wouldn't care about party lines. I'd just always truly make the American people my number one priority. For problems I'm ignorant in, I'd have experts from the left and right advise me on them and try to find the middle ground. That's best for America." I mean, that's what everybody says. This is what so many people, genuinely believe. And I honestly find it to be insane. They act like politics is a clear best solution to every single issue. What his statement essentially boiled down to was, if I was president, I would make the best choice because I would listen to people on both sides. I would put the American people first. Unfortunately, that's really not how things work. There's a lot of compromise. There aren't really solutions. Thomas Sowell has a great quote, which, even if you don't like the man, I find this quote to be just plainly true. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. Ultimately, politics is all about compromise and trade-offs, and games have a hard time actually modeling that, just due to the way that games work. When you code a game, actions you do or take have to have a coded response. Most games just aren't interested enough in politics to code in second-order effects of decisions. And then the fact that when you code decisions and choices, you're attributing a certain amount of good or bad incentives to make that choice. So in real life, there isn't a clear-cut best choice, but in video games, there almost always will be a clear-cut best choice to make or best series of choices to make. Look at Suzerain, if you're a fan of that. No matter what ideology you pick, there is a guide for you to follow where you can just make the best absolute decision to do what you want to do, and the whole country will love you and everything will be fixed. That's just not possible in real life. Another thing games struggle to sort of cover is to actually show how opinions shift over time and how the Overton window changes. If you're unfamiliar with the term Overton window, it is essentially what is an acceptable opinion to have in society. So take America. In the 1830s, it was 100% socially acceptable to support slavery. That was seen as somewhat mainstream. You would catch very little backlash from general society if you're like, well, of course I support slavery. But of course, now the window has shifted, for the better, I'll add. In America, if you said today that you unironically support slavery, you would probably get disowned by your family and then assaulted. Games that cover politics really struggle to show how opinions shift over time. There are a couple of games that attempt to show this, like Victoria 3. They have interest groups which represent the political clout of the population in your country. So there is a rural interest group representing farmers, and then there's capitalists being represented by the industrialist group. Now, they do try to make it somewhat dynamic because the leader of the party, of the interest group, influences which policies they support. So you could have a rural interest group be led by a Marxist, and they would support laws and bills that they normally wouldn't because their leader has different opinions on where the party should go. But it's never really permanent. You could have 3 Marxist leaders in a row, but they would never add those Marxist tenets onto their core beliefs. And then how the leaders are decided for rural groups is somewhat based on RNG. So there isn't really any pendulum swinging like there is in real life. Like, obviously, in America during the 70s, there was all that liberal, hippie love type of thing. And then that sort of started the Reagan Revolution, where conservatives took back over because people thought it was going too far left. In games, there aren't really any pendulum swinging like what would happen in real life. There are no progressive policies start getting passed, so then reactionary forces start arising. Tropico also attempts to sort of show this by having new political factions every era. So in the colonial era, at the start of the game, when you are still a colony, there are only two political factions. There are loyalists who want to remain a part of the United Kingdom, and independents who want freedom. Once you're out of that early era, those political groups disappear because those opinions would no longer be relevant. But other than that, they just start adding more and more political factions. There isn't really any more dynamicism after that. You can't really make any economic decisions that affect how people view certain policies or parties. I mean, there's some edicts and buildings that you can make to influence what people believe. But, like, you can't be a free market capitalist and then fuck up the economy, which in real life would cause more people to support a more planned, centralized economy, or vice versa. But because in the actual game, there's no actual dynamics to the system of what your political beliefs are doing to people. I think a lot of these issues boil down to the fact that players expect agency and fairness in games, but politics is chaotic and unfair. I mean, a game should never really be truly unfair. You should always have somewhat clear objectives and goals and way to solve problems. Like maybe it'll be hard, like Dark Souls, but Dark Souls isn't really unfair. You can learn the boss's pattern, you can level up. There's other things you can do to sort of level the playing field. Players want power, not process. When you make a decision, most players want clear, immediate feedback to their actions. But politics is slow and incremental. I mean, passing bills can take actual years. There's a lot of behind the scenes work you have to do. And if you want to push for radical change, it can take decades of laying the groundwork. I mean, look at Bernie Sanders. He's been in politics for a long time trying to push his brand of democratic socialism to the forefront of American politics. It has still not fully taken off. For the other more right-wing version of that, look at Ron Paul. He's spent a lot of time working his way up the Republican Party to try to shift it to a more libertarian view. And that still never really took off. Even after all the groundwork that both of those people laid, it still takes a long time to push for a more radical change in society. That's why a lot of more political-minded games will really speed up the time frame of things happening, or they'll skip months at a time in the case of Suzerain. Politics in real life is a marathon. Most players just want to sprint. Another issue, which is probably the most obvious, which I alluded to before, is that politics is inherently divisive. Politics affects real people, there's real ideologies, and they can truly inflict real mass suffering on their citizens due to their choices. Politics is messy and real, and if you choose to make a game talking about real issues, you run the risk, not even run the risk, you will alienate players politically. You will probably get banned in countries, and you are certainly going to generate backlash. And what are the results of all these negative incentives to making political games? Games either avoid specifics or sanitize political systems. Think of a game like Democracy. So the whole point of that game is to sort of run a government, try to help people. But all they really do is let you adjust slider and taxes. There's not a real opportunity to engage in ideological battles, which is sort of how our modern political system is characterized. I think Suzerain and other games masterfully sidestep this issue by having it be set in a fictional universe and creating stand-ins for real-world ideologies and people. But ultimately, you can't model real politics without stepping on real toes. Now, there are a couple of games that get it right, in my opinion, or should I say mostly right. I even have a video on this. I think Suzerain really nails that there are some no-win scenarios. That you can make every right choice and it will still not be enough. You will still not be able to get everything you want done. I think they do a really good job of showing real-world politics and ideologies, but setting it in a fake world so you're able to talk about real issues in honestly a more real way than games that attempt to show real-life politics. I think another good game that tries to really showcase what the political process is actually like, more specifically in America, is the political process, where you can work your way up all the way from city council to president, and they actually have bills, there's senates, there's filibusters. They're trying to show you what a more realistic look at the American system looks like. I also think that Democracy, the game series, does a somewhat good job, but it's much more mechanical. It tries to show the cause and effect of politics, but it doesn't really engage with what our system actually looks like. I think games that pull off politics well really focus on choice with consequences and embrace the gray areas of politics. And they have to accept the fact that players should lose even when doing the quote-unquote right thing. I think that's the issue with a lot of games that should include politics. Like, look at Europa Universalis. That game is all about building empires, but there is almost no need to actually deal with the factions and politics in your nation. You could have conquered the whole world, and there's no actual politics to engage with because it's going to be divisive. Or look at another game like Stellaris. Managing a huge intergalactic empire should be a monumental Herculean task. You'd have to manage 1 million pops across the galaxy who all have their own political beliefs. But in game, it truly boils down to nothing. I know in the new beta they're going to be trying to update it and add some more life to it, but as it stands right now, politics plays no part in a game where politics should be a huge part of it. Or even look at Hearts of Iron 4. I know I just keep on bringing up Paradox games, but they really should be showing politics and how it influences real world actions. But I think ultimately the issue is politics isn't really about winning as a politician. It's about surviving. It's about navigating chaos, compromise, and public anger. And that's why political games struggle, and why the ones that embrace the mess are the ones that stick with us. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It's really all I got. Please remember that Jesus loves you.